Say hi, YouTube. Say hi, YouTube. Here we are. Map of Consciousness explained by Professor David Hawkins. Dr. David Hawkins. We did last stream yesterday. It was his wife prefacing the book or prefacing the book, and she was basically saying, like, these are the benefits of the map. This is what the map is. And remember, the map of consciousness, on a broad sense, is just a framework for a practice to improve your life. Essentially, it's like a self-help tool. All right? So just keep that in mind. Don't take it too literal or too serious, okay? But don't take it too lightly either, okay? A few months before he passed away, I was sitting with Dr. Hawkins at his home and pointed to the long shelf of books he had written. "What's it like to know you wrote all those books?" he said. Oh, wait, is this the wife again? Yo, the wife just owns this book, okay? He said, "I don't see the books as mine. It wasn't the personal self that wrote the books. God was looking around for a mind that wasn't thinking. I was just a channel, a space that was empty. People see a body and a person and they think that the person wrote the books. But that wasn't the case. It was like a violin. It can't play itself. It has to be played." Long silence. And then he said, chuckling, "I stopped thinking years ago. I don't need to think. It's like a saw. Too much noise." Low-key, he's spitting. Dr. David Hawkins, Doc, was a rare combination of genius and humility. His life was unusual. I mean, who can imagine a mind empty of all thoughts? Misfit, he liked to say with a hearty laugh. It was a play on words. We were talking about mystics, and he said, "Yes, that's what people call me, one of those misfits." The details of his personal life were not important to him after certain spiritual experiences extinguished his personal self. The presence itself is all that's here in this moment, is how he began his day-long lecture at the Institute of Noetic Sciences in 2003. Indeed, he rarely used personal pronouns, a style that makes his writings unusual in modern times, but is very similar to the expression of historical mystics. Since today's readers like to know who an author is and what led to the unique discoveries in a book such as this, the following is a brief narrative introduction to the author and his trademark map of consciousness. Okay, cool. Dr. Hawkins was born in 1927 in Wisconsin and grew up during the Great Depression. And religiously, his family was Episcopalian, and he served as an altar boy and sang in the boys' choir. However, his profound spiritual experiences occurred outside of any religious context. At age 3, sitting in a little wagon, he had stunning awareness of existence. Reflecting on that moment from childhood, he told a group of us, "It was as if there had been total darkness, oblivion, and then suddenly giant cleave lights came on. I saw I was back in a body and I was not happy." He explained that in previous lifetimes he had been a devout Hinayana Buddhist and followed a pathway of negation to the void, nothingness, believing it to be the ultimate spiritual goal. But it was not, or else he wouldn't have ended up back here in a body. He explained that in previous lifetimes he had been... Okay. What, so he's saying that he was reincarnated into into this guy here, and he used to be in his past life or whatever? Bro had past life memories. Do you guys remember your past lives? I don't. It was a pre-verbal confrontation with the paradox of nothingness versus allness. A highly advanced spiritual gateway conundrum was another word he used to describe the confrontation with seeming opposites that he did not resolve until decades later. And his teaching on the void is one of his most important contributions to spiritual aspirants. With that kind of a childhood, this was a strange life to begin with. He often chuckled at the oddities of his life. Frankly, other children seemed extremely boring, and so I escaped into Plato and Socrates. While other boys were playing stickball, I was reading Aristotle and listening to the weekly opera program. He was also very industrious. By age 12, he had the longest newspaper route, 17 miles. Jesus. Riding a bike 17 miles? Goddamn, bro. Relax. With no electricity along the highway, everything was pitch black. One time a winter storm hit and gusting sub-zero winds toppled over his bicycle, scattering all the newspapers. As he describes in chapter 8, he punched his way into a crusted snowbank on the side of the road to get out of the freezing wind. No sooner had he burrowed into the snowbank than he had melted into the infinite presence of love. The experience was so unforgettable that 70 years later, when I asked him to describe the state of infinite love, he didn't miss a beat. All negative emotion, fear, impatience, frustration disappeared. Instead, there was only the radiance of infinite, timeless, everlasting, all-encompassing love, which was not different than the reality of what I was, what I am. Do you guys think he's lying? Compared to this infinite love, the God of religion now seemed irrelevant to the young David. At age 16, his belief in religion disappeared altogether. It be like that, unfortunately. It do be like that. One day, while walking in the woods, an awareness of human suffering throughout the ages suddenly overwhelmed him like a massive dark cloud. In that moment, he blamed God for all the suffering in the world and became an atheist. I mean, like, he just like the rest of us, bro. Now he just like the rest of us, bro. Not even gonna lie. Yet, despite the collapse of religious belief in God, he had a relentless inner drive to get to the truth of existence. There was an inner core within consciousness that was desperate to reach some greater truth. Born with an exceptionally high IQ, he easily mastered the world of science, theology, medicine, and psychiatry through the intellect. After service on a minesweeper in the U.S. Navy during World War II, he completed medical school while holding 3 jobs and soon became the head psychiatrist running a large hospital in New York and publishing a plethora of scientific articles based on his clinical research. He went through many years of psychoanalysis with one of the leading Freudians at the time. He was a dedicated Zen Buddhist meditator, sitting for an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. He's locked in. What the fuck? Yet all of these investigations only brought deeper despair. Though he had reached the pinnacle of worldly success, he was confronted with a vast and way less inner darkness. My thing be like, alright, if he gonna do all that and then feel like that, bro, nobody's convincing me to go be a doctor for fun, bro, or for a check. Like, nobody's about to convince me to do some shit that I don't want to do, bro. Because if he did all this and he wanted to do this shit and he still was like, nah, this shit not it, bro. There's nobody on planet Earth that's gonna convince me to take 20 years out of my life to try some shit just for a check. Like, hell no. The crisis culminated in 1965 when he was 38 and at the point of death due to a progressive and fatal illness. All his efforts to pursue the truth of existence via the intellect had failed, and he found himself in a state of extreme anguish and despair. Just before he was about to die, the thought flashed through his mind, what if there is a God? And with that, he called out a prayer. If there is a God, has anybody ever done that? Has anybody ever hit the if there is a God? I have definitely hit that move. I have definitely hit that move before. But, word. If there is a God, I ask him to help me now. And he surrendered totally to whatever God there might be, not expecting much. Immediately, he went into oblivion. It took him 30 years to recount the earth-shattering aftermath. The oblivion suddenly disappeared and was replaced by the stunning splendor of the light of divinity that shone forth as the radiance and essence of allness. Psychosis? Nah. Really, I'm just pulling his card because I gotta play both sides because I'm reading the book. Like, you know, I gotta play both sides type shit. Like, you know me. So I gotta pull my son card. His consciousness has been completely and suddenly transfigured. The mind and its mental patterns were gone forever, replaced by the presence and infinite, all-encompassing awareness, which is radiant, complete, total, silent, and still. A peaceful inner silence prevailed, as there were no images, concepts, or thoughts. In fact, there was no person left to think. All separateness between him and others dissolved, and he saw the same beautiful, timeless perfection in everyone around him. A radiance shines forth from everyone's face. Everyone is equally beautiful. In this state of non-duality, each living thing is aware of every other, and all things are interconnected and in communication and harmony by means of awareness and by sharing the basic quality of the essence of existence itself. All sentient beings, nothing is better or worse, higher or lower than anything else. All sentient beings are equal. All things are intrinsically holy in the divinity of their creation. Dr. Hawkins in Power versus Force says that the work on the map of consciousness began in 1965, by which he means this transfiguration of his own consciousness. He may well be the first person trained as a clinical scientist physician to undergo the transformation classically termed enlightenment or unio mystica, and then been able to contextualize the condition in lectures and books. While many of us have transient moments of flow, intense joy, or self-transcendence at certain peak experiences, the birth of a child, athletic feats, stage performance, creative work, mountain climbing, or lovemaking, to name a few, or even life-altering spiritual transformations, near-death experiences, for example, or beatific visions. It is exceedingly rare for a person's consciousness to be transfigured suddenly and permanently into a non-dual state. Historically, most such people either leave the body or remain in God shock, unable to speak about the state of ego dissolution, when all sense of a personal self dissolves, like sugar melting into warm water. To be honest, though, because of that fact, where it's like you reach a certain level of enlightenment and then you turn into a vegetable, because of that, I feel like the point of life probably isn't to reach that point. I don't think we're supposed to get that far into it, to be completely honest, because like you can't even function. Like when you're geeked like that, when you seeing it like that, like what is even the human experience at that point? So I think it's definitely a balance. I think the whole thing is about the balance, like, of it. You know what I'm saying? Being able to get as high as you can while also being able to manage a very real and human life and being able to help others and stuff like that. Being able to help yourself first and then others. Because if that was the case, then we all would just die. It would just be like, or you would have an enlightenment room where you just sit in all day. You get food on an IV drip. And yeah, like, it just doesn't make any sense for that to be the case. Like, just die then. But yeah, okay. As William James tells us in his classic, The Varieties of Religious Experience, the mystic experience is ineffable, impossible to describe. In the wake of this transfiguration of consciousness, Dr. Hawkins' life was never the same, and it took years to adjust to the changes. The nervous system felt strained, like high-tension wires burning with high-voltage energy. In social interactions, he felt bewildered when people referred to his body as David, because he knew himself to be everywhere and one with everything. Sounds like psychosis, bro. Talking about bewildered. When people called you by your actual name, you felt bewildered, gang? No, it was. I don't think it's a psychosis. I genuinely don't think he was. I don't think he was experiencing psychosis. I don't. I'm just trolling. Somebody would ask me a question and I would wonder who they were talking to. When he looked into the eyes of others, he saw only the one self. There isn't any separate you there and me here. The blissfulness and self-completion made it difficult to summon interest in normal functioning. The old motivations of income and success were irrelevant. The only motivation strong enough to pull him back into the body and the world of form, he said, was love. Love becomes the sole motivator of countenance of physical existence. Bang! We found it. No, it's crazy though. Like when you experience it. All right, for anybody that's done psychedelics, you know it takes a little while to like kind of get back to assimilating in the world. If you've done any type of like psychedelic or any type of mind altering thing, you got to give yourself a cool down time. And I guess he experienced a deeper version of that, like a version that just hit harder. So, you know. But it's good. If none of this was induced by psychedelics, that means that it affirms the spiritual experience and it affirms the fact that we are human, obviously. But like, it affirms the fact that the human drive or the tie to us just living a physical life Because, all right, so a lot of people get real apathetic and they'll be like, what's the point? Like, I should just die. Like, what's even the point of me being here? And it's like, okay, well, the point is to love other people. And that's it. That's actually that's the only reason. And in order to love other people, you have to, be responsible for yourself first in order to even participate in the act of love. So, yeah, that's all there is to it. That's literally all this life is about, to be real. Because if that wasn't the case, if you believe in like spirits and stuff like that, then if that wasn't the case, then the spirits would just pull up here. Like they would just become physical. They would just be here and do whatever they want. But I feel like that equation doesn't really sync up with this reality that we got going on here. So they can't just go to Starbucks, Like it has to be a whole ordeal, some portal shit, some sacrifices, and all this stuff that it probably takes. Yo, I'm getting far out there, okay? Hold on. Let's get back to the book. Each time it is extremely difficult to come back into the body, you feel homesick, like one has left one's home for some kind of a task no one has agreed to. Whenever I go into that state, there is no form. One just dissolves into infinite golden love. It is so exquisite that it makes one cry to have to come back into the body again. The only reason you can leave it is because you know it is there forever and that you will return forever. Facts. One time he told me he was alone in the woods and a bliss state took over. He was aware that vultures were circling his body, poised to descend as soon as the last breath left his body. But he realized he might as well stay in the body if it helped others, because the bliss was forever and always. He surrendered the body completely to be an instrument of service in the world, allowing it to be re-energized. As soon as this happened, the vultures flew away. So basically, he was like, eat me, vultures. And then once he surrendered to the vultures to be eaten, his body got the energy it needed to keep going, I guess. So this guy has a lot of stories. One time he told me this. A lot of stories where he was completely by himself. Somebody else telling a story that he told to them. But it's cool, David. We reading your book, bro. This is good, though, because he kind of bodied it, though. Like, he bodied it where it's like, okay, he's going into the spiritual thing, and it's like, oh my God, I'm so geeked. And then, but he comes back to real life and it has the biggest psychiatric practice in the country. It's like, okay, bro, you doing both. You doing both, which is very cool. Despite these successes, his one patient at a time efforts as a doctor seem like a drop in the bucket to him. There was enormous frustration in that the human suffering could be countered in only one patient at a time. It was like bailing out the sea. He was dedicated to find a means of inner transformation that could help multitudes. Here we think of the Buddha who, after his awakened, laid out the Eightfold Path. Or we think of Bill Wilson who, having had his fatal and hopeless alcoholism relieved by a suffusion of light, developed the 12 steps for recovery. As Dr. Hawkins probed the process of healing among patients in his hospitals, he noticed that it had little to do with what he actually did or prescribed as a doctor, and more to do with the inner consciousness that radiated love. He noticed also that the patients of certain doctors tended to improve, while the patients of other doctors mostly declined or stayed the same, even when the drug and treatment protocol was the same in all cases. In his address for the annual Landberg Lecture at the University of California at San Francisco, UCSF, Health Sciences Center on April 25, 1997, he recollected some observations from his time of clinical practice in New York when physicians were prescribing various vitamins as part of the treatment for schizophrenia. The amount of side effects that a doctor's patients have depends on the consciousness of the doctor. It doesn't depend on the medicine. Facts. The patients of one particular doctor in New Jersey, for example, manifested a type of skin discoloration with the use of vitamin B3. However, the patients of other doctors had no side effects at all, and in fact responded well to the treatment. What was the secret of the successful doctors? He saw that the healing effect related to their level of consciousness. The higher the physician's level of consciousness, the more likely the patients were to heal. This would make sense to spiritually oriented people, but how to present it to a society steeped in a rational, linear mindset? How to demonstrate that it's inner consciousness that determines outcome and not the outer actions? Huh. We will finish the intro in the next video, so go to the next video if you want, if you want to continue the book, okay? Thanks. All right.